Good morning, friends. Arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. What a line! And my first initiation to this line was back in 1996, in which I was presented a book of this great man, and that book was published from Advaita Mission, Advaita Ashram. And I have seen that book that was given by one of my maternal uncles to me. That book was a orange colored book with a photo of one person, a bearded person, very good looking person with a turban. And when I first saw him, I thought that who is he? I didn't know exactly what that book was all about. As I opened the book, the first chapter was Happy Birthday Rahul, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. So immediately I had a word with my parents, as in, who is this gentleman? So the first reaction that my dad given was, it was Swami Vivekananda. Similarly, I asked that question because my inquisitiveness had aroused by that time, and I had just asked my ma as well that who is he? Then she told the same thing. This is Swami Vivekananda. So he's a great spiritual leader, and you should know about him. Please read this book. So I was very small at that time. I couldn't understand the magnanimity or the supremacy of Swami Vivekananda at that time. So I started flapping the pages of the book, and as I went about it, there were some chapters. The first chapter was the 7 sages, and that was a book of around 40 pages. And as I rolled it on, as I read it, I just came into terms with the ideal of Swami Vivekananda. This was the first initiation. After that, the journey continued. I was very lucky or kind of blessed to have the influence of books in my life from a very young age. If you see my growing up, if you just kind of reel back, you'll see our home is adorned by so many almiras that house around 1,000 books. So they have books of various topics. There are books of sociology, there are books of art, there are books of culture, because my mom was also from literature background, and she was very interested in Rabindra Sangeet as well. So there were books of all kind of writers. And as a young boy, I used to see the bindings of that book. First, before taking it out, I saw Upendra Kishore Rachanabuli, Shukumar Rai, this all things, Shishu Bholanath, the works of Tagore, the works of English, everything came, and there were so many books of Ma Sarada Devi as well. So I was very interested somehow by that initiation of that book. And the next major fillip to my interest in Swami Vivekananda came when I was given the blessing by my Guruji, Swami Sansudhanandaji Maharaj, who left his mortal frame some years back, and that was back in 1999. I still remember in a small room of the puja room of Ramakrishna Vedanta Math in Siliguri, where me and my brother, I was a very small kid at that time of class 2, adorned in a dhoti and a white kurta, and I had lost my 2 tits at that time, mill tits they call, and I was a kid. My brother was 5 years elder to me, so he was around in class, I guess in class 7. So we went to that puja room of Ramakrishna Vedanta Math, and there was a great man sitting with a flowing beard, a great spirituality and a great serenity around his face, Sansudhanandaji Maharaj. So as we were sitting with him, he first asked me, "Did you come for Diksha?" "Sure, I'll give you." And then he uttered the magical hymns, and that hymn still resonates in my heart. And that was a very important juncture of my life, because that was the time in which I was initiated, or rather I got the Diksha in the name of the great Ramakrishna Paramahansa Maharaj, Paramahansa Dev. And in that room also I could see adorned the picture of Swami Vivekananda. So from 1999 I got the Upanayana, or the sacred thread, or in Bengali Poite as they call, in 2000, and I just followed all the rules of Upanayana for 1 year strictly, right from doing Ekadasi or doing the Sandhya Arani, thanks to my Baba, who was my Acharya Guru at that time or so. So that 1999-2000, in which many kids don't understand what spirituality was all about, I was initiated to spirituality. And that journey right from 2000, going to Swamiji's ashram in Siliguri, sitting for his pravachans, hearing his sermons, hearing the stories of Upanishads, Ved, Gita, Mahabharata. This is how spirituality came in doses and doses, rather as photons to me, as they call in science, packets of energy. And it just kept on coming to me. But the thing is, I didn't know at that point of time that who was this Nachiketa, who are the stories of Yamraj, who was Sant Eknath, the stories of our Rig Veda, Samveda, the stories of Vivekananda, the fables of Kathamrita. When we used to go to Maharaj, our Maharaj's place, we used to hear all that, we used to sit in that room and he used to talk. And believe me or not, that was the time. I still believe that if you hit positive vibes to somebody continuously, it might not show the effect right then, but there will be a long-term influence and impact on it. And that had occurred to me. And as I grew up, I became interested to hear more about Ramakrishna Paramahansa Dev, his stories. So my ma had a collection that one of my uncle had given her of Kathamrita. She used to tell me the stories of how Ramakrishna Paramahansa just made everything very simple. The entire Indian Upanishads, Indian spirituality, in simple terms that were written by Sri Ma. And at that time, she also used to talk with me about Sarada Devi in simple terms. I didn't have to read the books. She read it and she just told me, maybe after the evening coffee or afternoon lunch, I used to sit and hear. And even my dad used to tell the stories of Swamiji, Swami Vivekananda. And it was back in 2000, first time I went to Dakshineshwar, when I saw the Kali temple, the room of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, in which my dad told me, please sit there for some time, because the great soul used to live there. And believe me, when I used to sit there and meditate, even for 5 minutes, the positive vibes used to come to me. It was the first time when I went to Belur Math, when I saw the amazing structure. I was really taken to a very different level, seeing Swami Vivekananda's workplace and the place. It gave me goosebumps to think that this was the place that the great Swamiji had walked in. He had spent so much time of his life, and in the room of Swamiji, in which he left his left for heavenly journey by leaving his mortal soul. That also was a great inspiration at that point of time. And in 2011, 2009, I got admission in Scottish Church College, Kolkata. And believe me, the first thing that hit me or struck me was Swami Vivekananda also studied in this college. And I was blessed because it was in a stone's throw distance, his home. It was just next to my college, in between the Hedua lake. The first time in 2009, I went to his native home or ancestral home in Shimulia in Kolkata. And there I could see the Swamiji's birthplace, the place where the great soul was born, the place where he had spent his childhood, the place where he studied, the place in which first time he had the kind of spiritual vision. And when he saw the Gautam Buddha, his gloves, boxing gloves, he was very rich. I mean, if you see, he was the son of an attorney. So there were no iota of poverty. So coming from such a background, been born and brought up like a king. And the transition of Swami Vivekananda, I think, can only be compared to the great Siddhartha, who also left for the search of spirituality by leaving his son Rahula and his wife, and then we called him the great Gautama Buddha or the Buddha. So those were the things that I really liked. And the studies about Swami Vivekananda, right from small books about him by Swami Ranganathananda, then the book books of him by Swami Saradananda, and then reading the Apostles of Ramakrishna. So I understand that when you get interest in something, you just keep on advancing in that path, and you keep on reading, and you keep on having that thirst to learn more. And spirituality is all about that. It's not about fulfilling the thirst. The more you drink, the more thirsty you are. The more you move. It's like it's like a nectar. When once you jump in it, you get to be sauced in it, and you feel to have it again and again. So I read about it. I read the Apostles of Ramakrishna. I read so many works about Swami Vivekananda. Complete works of Swami Vivekananda I have not read fully. I have read around 30-40%. I have read the Chicago Address. I have read a number of booklets of Swami Vivekananda, a lot of books on Swami Vivekananda by various stalwarts of Ramakrishna Vedanta Mutt, even Swami Avedananda and Belur Mutt and Advaita Ashrama. And I really feel that 39 years and a magic, right from his birth at Simulia to his studies in Scottish Church College, then called the General Assembly Institution, then suddenly drenched into poverty after the death of his dad, going to Sri Ramakrishna in search of the answer. Sir, have you seen God? That was the question that had struck Swami Vivekananda when he was in a philosophy class in Scottish Church, and somebody, I just didn't remember the name of the teacher, he told him that you can actually see God. Then the first question the rational Vivekananda had asked, sir, have anybody seen God in this world? Then the professor replied, yes, there is one guy, there is one person who lives in Dakshineshwar, a priest of the Kali temple by the name of Sri Ramakrishna or Gadadhar Chatterjee. He claims that he has seen God. At that time, Vivekananda was also linked with the Arya Samaj of Keshav Chandra Sen. He was out and out Brahmo, and he didn't believe in all idol worship and somebody saying God, and his rational mind always opposed it. So he went there, he sat in that room, he could see that bearded guy, a bearded person talking about hymns and all. He didn't like it at the first go. First time he sang a song to him. This story I think many of you know. And after hearing the song, he had little discussion, and then he asked the questions, have you seen God? And that man, the great standout kind of, rather I'll say the Messiah of God, Ramakrishna replies, yes, I have seen him and I talked to him as I am talking to you. This was his first visit, then the second, then the fourth. He doesn't know why he's going, but the pull or the magnetic pull of the Guru when he meets the Sishya cannot be compared to any of the forces of this world. And that is something that comes from within. Ramakrishna was waiting for Vivekananda, and Vivekananda was waiting. A scripture or a history was waiting to be created when these two souls met. And that is what we have seen. The Ramakrishna Vedanta Mutt, this transfer of the philosophies of Ramakrishna to the western shores, and the whole world now knows about Swamiji and Ramakrishna and Saradama. And that was the start. That was that evening in which he just put his one feet on the chest of Vivekananda, and he was lost in a sublime vision. And that was the transition. He moved. He went to Swamiji. He went to Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and then the band of apostles came up. There was Abhidananda, there was Saradananda, there was Adbhutananda, Virajananda, Vijnanananda, the apostles of Ramakrishna, whose photos you see in the walls of the Belur Mutt when we enter in the back sides. And a band was created, and this great group of spiritually charged young persons decided to leave home in search of spirituality, and their first nest was the Baranagar Mutt, then the Kashipur Mutt, and then the present Belur Mutt. Ramakrishna had left for heavenly abode by leaving his mortal soul by 1885, and then the journey of Vivekananda starts. But it was not easy. First as a wandering monk travelling from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and then finally meeting the Raja of Khetri in Rajasthan, and getting the name from Swami Virajananda to Swami Vivekananda. That name was given by Raja of Khetri. Then travelling to the south, meeting great followers like Alsingha Perumal, influencing the south, sitting on Kanyakumari, the great rock, and just getting the call from Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa, walking on the waves saying, the west is your place. Moving to Chicago, staying in wooden boxes in the cold, chilling cold of Chicago, and then finally meeting a pious lady and his lecture in the Chicago General Assembly's institution, where he was not even in the list, he was not even an invited guest, There were some people of Brahmo Samaj and all, they were given lectures, and there was this Swamiji comes up and starts his lecture by saying, "Sisters and brothers of America." This line was enough to shake the public. It was enough to shake the USA. It was enough to shake the world. And it continued. There were a number of visits of the Swamiji to Thousand Island Park, to Chicago, to England, in which he had passed the message of Upanishad, he passed the message of Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and it continued. His aim and his mission was to establish a world institution in the name of Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa, in which all the devotees of the world will get the thirst, will get the water when they are thirsty, they will get the soul relieved, they will understand the ethos of Upanishads. And it was not Hindutva, it was more about spirituality. It was more about encouraging people to come to spirituality and achieve what they want. In the mission, as I started by saying, arise, awake and stop not, still the goal is reached. Yes, this is the day of the champion in which he was born. Swami Vivekananda lived only for 39 years, and it was a quiet evening in his Belur Mutt that he told his followers to close the windows. Sister Nivedita, one of the greatest followers of Swamiji, also didn't know about it. He told to close the door, he went for meditation, and after some time his fellow colleagues comes and see him. There is little bit bleeding in the nose. Doctors came, but they could not do anything. By that time the Swamiji had left his mortal soul for heavenly abode, and I say he had moksha. And he always said, I am not going to live till 40. He had many physical ailments, he battled it all with common mission and a command of his Guruji, Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa, to go and fight and establish his principle to the world. Swamiji has taught the world to face the consequences with a face and not to show his back. And he always taught, and I can say you, if anybody follows one message of Swami Vivekananda per day, he is not going to have any negative vibes, any negativity in his life. He can be an inspiration to the millions that he's always, and can be to all of us in the coming days. In his birthday, let's give a pledge, and let's have a pledge that Swami Vivekananda didn't live for 39 years only. He lived a life. He lived a generation. He lived something beyond life, and that is what we are seeing today. A very happy birthday, a very happy birthday to this great soul. And I always feel that a lot of people should come and seek the ideas, and definitely we all can move forward with his blessings. Thank you.